Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right. So Supreme Court, in a case called Citizens United, reaffirmed and enhanced the notion of corporate personhood. Corporate personhood has existed for a long time, but what Citizens United did was said that corporations and labor unions could spend unlimited sums of money to influence the outcome of elections. And before everyone thinks that that's just presidential elections, I want you to think about this in these terms. Say your local school board is under pressure from a private company like Sodexo to privatize cafeteria services. School board says, no, we don't want to do that. We think we're more cost effective here with the publicly provided services. Well, Sodexo can go out and spend an unlimited sum of money, or millions of dollars, to take out your entire elected school board and replace them with folks that they want that are going to give them the contract for possibly millions of dollars more, in providing the services that would have otherwise been publicly provided. I mean, that's what Citizens United allows. We're already starting to see the impacts of this. Chamber of Commerce pledged to spend $50 million this year from March until November targeting Democrats in vulnerable districts who voted for health care reform. They've already upped that number to $75 million. With the Disclose Act now being dead for the time being, no one will have to announce who's behind any of these ads. I mean, it's really scary. So we've got to get to that right away. And we've got to go beyond the legislative fix because, honestly, a disclaimer at the end of an ad isn't enough. I think we've got to deal with the underlying issue of corporate personhood and take that on directly.
How will you do that?
You'd have to amend the Constitution to explicitly state it. But we've got to start that process. We've got to start that discussion because from the polling I've seen,
right,
vast majority of people really don't like the idea that corporations have the same rights as people. It goes beyond the simple issue of corporate personhood, right? I mean, one of the things, it sounds kind of cheesy, but we've got to get to. I really want to be a good government guy. It disturbs me greatly when I see what's going on in the Gulf Coast, and then it's revealed that 3 out of 4 oil industry lobbyists once worked for the federal government. That's just another symbol of everything that's wrong with Washington, D.C. and the influence of corporate money. This is one of the most heavily taxpayer subsidized industries in the country, and yet one of the most profitable. BP made $45 billion in profits last year and had to be dragged kicking and screaming to cough up $20 billion to clean up the mess they've made. Wall Street almost collapsed the entire damn economy playing roulette with derivatives and credit default swaps. And then mere months later, when Congress attempts to try and reform that financial system to maybe end some of those or curtail some of those risky practices, that sector sends 2,000 paid lobbyists down to Washington, D.C. to do everything they could to water down and weaken whatever attempts at reform there were. There aren't enough people in Washington that are standing up to those interests, and because I've spent a career doing that, I want to give it a go. And one of the things I point out as a difference between Steve Lynch and myself is that we have a very different relationship with this sector. When Bank of America got $45 billion from the taxpayers in the form of a bailout, but then kept their fleet of 9 corporate jets and continued to pay 7-figure bonuses to their executives and announced plans to lay off 35,000 workers whose median salary was $23,000, those of us in SEIU and other progressive constituencies marched a couple hundred people down to their headquarters in the financial district and called them out. And actually, this was part of a national campaign that led to the ouster of Ken Lewis, Bank of America's CEO at the time. Now, Steve Lynch has a very different relationship with Bank of America. He cashes their campaign contributions. And I just do not believe that you can be an effective advocate for families facing foreclosure, for communities that are in crisis, and standing up to corporate entities like Bank of America if you're cashing their checks.
So if they offered you money for your campaign, you would definitely refuse it?
I'm not taking any corporate PAC money or funds from lobbyists. Judy Meredith accepted.